I'm David Zonderman, and I teach labor history at North Carolina State University. And I've been asked to talk a little bit about the ban on public sector collective bargaining in North Carolina. I think that the campaign is facing what I consider three big myths that are being put out by the opponents. And that is, people want to keep this 50-year-old law on the books. And you need to remember that who wants to keep it on the books? Well, there are some associations like the Sheriff's Association, the League of Municipalities, also, for example, the Chamber of Commerce. Now, the Chamber of Commerce is a private organization. The Chamber of Commerce doesn't employ public employees, but in their mind, if this law stays on the books, it weakens all unions. So the Chamber of Commerce wants to keep this law on the books. And these groups that want to keep the law on the books are putting out three myths that we need to fight, we need to counter. The first myth is that if we repeal General Statute 9598, public employees will go on strike. Well, the reason that's a myth is there's a separate law in North Carolina that prohibits public employees from striking. And if you repeal 9598, it doesn't change that law. So public employees in this state will still not have the right to strike. So that's simply wrong. It's a red herring. Repealing 9598 has nothing to do with public employees getting a right to strike. The second myth is if you repeal 9598, everybody will collectively bargain and everyone will be forced to collectively bargain. All public employees will be forced, all public employers will be forced to collectively bargain. Again, it's simply wrong. All we are asking for in the HOPE Coalition is to remove the ban on collective bargaining, to at least allow the idea of collective bargaining to be discussed, to at least allow public employers and public employees who want to sit down and think of ways to promote good employee-employer relations and put it in a contract can have that option. Right now that option doesn't even exist. But there's nothing in repealing 9598 that would force collective bargaining. The third myth that's out there is, well, this is a terrible idea because if we allow collective bargaining, then everyone's taxes are going to go up, and we can't raise taxes in the middle of the terrible recession we're in. Well, again, that's just too simplistic. It is true that if unions in this state that represent public employees had the right to collectively bargain, one of the things they would want to bargain for is better wages and better benefits. That's true for everybody who works. Virtually everybody who works wants good wages and decent benefits, good health care, a pension plan, things of that sort. So that's not wrong. The part that's wrong is what we also know in states where there are strong public sector bargaining and contracts and unions, many of those states actually have very low turnover rate. Workers stay on the job. They become more experienced. They become more skilled. They become more productive. And the states have to pay less in turnover costs. They don't have to pay for advertising, for recruiting, for interviewing, for training. So if there was an increase in salary costs, some of that increase would probably be offset by lower turnover costs. So we've got to be careful about just making that automatic assumption that collectively bargained contracts instantly result in higher taxes. It's just not that simple. So we need to watch out for those three myths when we're trying to argue our case for the right of public sector employees in North Carolina to have the right to collectively bargain. Remember, that's a right in 48 other states, and it's a right that all private sector workers have. Everyone at least has the right to talk about collective bargaining in this country, except for workers in North Carolina and one other state.